We make quite the team. I'm stronger. I'm smarter. I got a bigger dick.
I can't believe you've done this.
That's quite big.
Go to sleep, go to sleep. No, I don't think I will.
Shut up!
Nope. Nope.
Get the fuck out of here! Bye, have a great time.
Come on, slather it up. Nigga snag.
Hey friends, so I finally delved deep into the mechanics of Warrior and was pleasantly surprised by how good they made swinging a metal stick the size of a human. This video isn't really a guide, though it'd be funny to release one 6 months after the game has launched. It's gonna be more about praising the good mechanical design for this vocation and maybe shedding some light on some nuances that you might not have known. So I'm gonna do that by breaking down how fights can be buttery smooth when playing as Warrior into 4 parts. The initiation phase, the charging phase, the reaction phase, and the finisher. The initiation phase is pretty much how you start the fight. I have one skill recommendation for this, and that's Ravening Lunge. You can use it to close distance and immediately disable most small enemies when you pick them up. I usually like to pick enemies up to group them together or isolate them depending on the situation, like if I want to be surrounded or not. I rarely pin enemies to walls though, since it's a pretty long animation. Best to be used when there's only one enemy. You can also use it to get out of areas of effect like spells and roars if you manage to notice what the enemy is doing. I left out one detail in my Pain Train video when talking about throwing enemies off cliffs. You can press the light or heavy attack button to fling enemies off your sword to guarantee the throw instead of cancelling and dropping them to the ground. It has a slightly longer animation than cancelling, so you decide which option to choose depending on your situation. I usually go through with the animation on large enemies, but you can also use it to get close and cancel instead of running, and then use barge. Oh yeah, by the way, I'd like to share a mental note that I haven't talked about in my previous videos. I feel like in order to have the most fun with the martial type weapons, meaning not the magic casters, is to try not to sprint during combat as much as you can. Try to use your vocation or weapon skills to move around instead. Using Barge as a pseudo dodge for example, or moving out of areas using Revening Lunge like I mentioned before. It's much more fluid than stopping your attack halfway to run and reposition. I also think this shows off your mastery over the vocation. Since all vocations can sprint, it's much more impressive when you can move in a way that's unique to your vocation. Of course this can't be applicable all the time, but it's just a good mindset to have when engaging with mechanics and adds to the enjoyment of the combat. Plus it's pretty cool in the role-playing aspect when you can call yourself a specialist of your favorite vocation. Alright, enough of that blabbering. On to phase 2. Now that you've initiated the fight and positioned yourself, it's time to get into your bread and butter, those being your charge attacks or basic attacks. Like I mentioned in the Paint Train video, not only you can swing your sword faster in succession when chaining light attacks with precise timing, but you can also go into a light attack charge from the perfect timing as it starts the charging animation faster than if you just start holding the attack button on its own. You can either do this or one of your many charge attack skills like Raising Sweep or Mountain Breaker. But my favorite is Heavenward Sunder since it helps deal with flying enemies and makes it easier to reach the heads of large monsters. So while charging, you can make a decision between 3 options. The obvious one is to follow through with your charge attack if you see an opening and enemies don't seem like they'll hit you before you can launch your attack. You can also power through hits since you have knockdown resistance while charging, but we're trying to master the vocation here, so try not to crouch. As you should already know, your charge attacks can parry if you time them right as the enemy's hitbox collides with your weapon. This usually results in a knockdown and you can freely do finishers or just wail on them with chain of blows if they're not dead yet. This parry is only present in DD2's Greatsword archetype and not in any other game that I know of. Adds a strong identity to the class if you ask me. Monster Hunter Wilds seems to have adopted this concept for Greatsword, the thieving bastards. They even stole Magic Archer's tracking shots. Alright, back on topic. Let's say your charge attack isn't in time and you might get hit during or after the attack. You can cancel the charge with Barge, your vocation skill. This is very similar to Monster Hunter World Onwards with the shoulder tackle. This attack has a lot of knockback so it usually can interrupt small enemies. I think it has increased knockdown resistance when you use it too, but I'm not sure. I would recommend using this if you need to have a panic button while charging. Keep in mind though that this move can't really stagger large enemies on its own without much build up, so you're probably gonna take some damage and possibly getting knocked down while using this move to intercept. And this leads us to the next phase and your third option while charging. So what do you do if charge attacks and Barge aren't very good options? Enter Tidal Fury, or Tidal Wrath. This is like Fighter's parry but on steroids. If you time the parry right, which the active parry frames are slightly delayed after activating the skill, you will perform a counter bump into a counter attack, which both have very high knockdown and a lot of damage on the counter attack. The knockdown is so high that I think it's guaranteed to knock down everything in the game if it hits with a fully Dwarven upgraded Dragon's Flight or Dragon's Bite. It can be used to cancel your charge attack if you need to parry while charging. It takes some time getting used to, but I can't see playing Warrior without this skill. It adds so much more to do instead of relying on your knockdown resistance while charging. Some extra info: if you time it wrong, you will still block most attacks, but you will be locked in the animation for quite a bit. And for every hit blocked, you consume stamina. You can also use it to block incoming projectiles, but it only blocks, doesn't parry. It generally blocks physical projectiles but not AoE stuff like the Harpy's Poison Spray. As for spells, you need to experiment on your own, but the general idea of physical versus magic works most of the time. Finally, we're at the finisher. This one's not so deep. Once you've gotten used to the flow of this deeper style of greatsword play, you will most probably end up in a situation where there's only a single small enemy left, or with a helpless large monster being knocked down. You could do the obvious heavy attack finisher or slap on the Meister skill Arc of Might for the big smack. I usually run in Spirit to counteract some crowd control stuff like sleep from wargs or chimeras, but Arc of Might is definitely hard to pass up since Big Smack is one of the reasons why you would play Warrior. This is where I actually wish for more skill slots just so I can use the Meister skills on top of having your bases covered. It would definitely add more flair to the pure vocations. It could also probably help shut up Warfarer haters. That's all for the technical stuff. I usually play the more mobile classes, so for me to enjoy this archetype so much was really a surprise to me. I would even go so far to say that it's a contender for my favorite pure vocation alongside Mystic Spearhand. I don't really see a more complete and strong design for a greatsword user than in DD2. The closest that comes to mind is Monster Hunter Rise's greatsword, but even that one doesn't have a charge attack parry. We'll see when Monster Hunter Wilds comes out. And that was my glazing session for DD2's Warrior. I hope I've given you Big Bonk main some new insight on the intricacies of this vocation, or just reaffirming your choice to main it. Maybe even encouraging other players to try the vocation if they haven't before. Warrior mains are definitely eating well cause Capcom cooked hard on this. That will be all from me for now. Now go bonk more monsters and chat your way to victory, fellow Risen. Jester signing off.